Now it's recording. Thank you. All right. Ryan also just wrote me that. Okay. Anybody would like to talk? Please come.
Hi, Werner. Good afternoon. It's Udi.
Udi, you are always the courageous one who starts, huh?
Yeah. I carry the question all over the week. And I want to ask you about something. When we are any experience, at least with me, I have the process of recognition. I recognize it as this and that, and it's probably, or I believe that it prevents from the authenticity of the event or being in here and now, as we said, more clear. Can you say something about this process of making everything recognized as this and that?
I'm not sure what you're asking, whether the recognition of things is preventing us from being clearly in the present. Is that the question?
Yeah, yes.
You're right. It can, but it need not. Because, of course, until we are rooted in that awareness of being in that timelessness of the now, it helps that we withdraw, that we close the eyes, that we have as little external stimuli as possible in order to focus on the consciousness, on that which makes the experience possible. But you can more and more retain that awareness even if you are active, even if you are experiencing so many things. Then at the same time you are aware there is that immovable against the background of which all the things are experienced. It simply depends whether we completely get absorbed in our recognition or whether we are aware, okay, this experience is there, I recognize, I look at a tree, I've seen many trees, so I recognize it appears as a tree, but at the same time don't lose the touch of that which makes the experience possible. So usually people are completely absorbed. Most of the time they are not even absorbed in what they are experiencing, but absorbed in the mind and thinking about the past and the future and so many things. But even when the attention is more in the present, then the attention has the tendency to be completely absorbed in the content of the experience, which is already closer to the truth than when we just wool gathering, when we just think about what happened, getting annoyed about what happened, being afraid what could happen. If you are focused in the present on that experience, even in the recognition, you are already here. But then if you are totally absorbed there, then we're still missing that which makes the experience possible. And we can learn to at least remind ourselves to turn the attention to that. Then you look at the tree, at the same time you're aware, okay, this appears as a tree, but here now, timeless, I am. I am that because of this experience is possible.
But when you say that when we experience the content of the event, is it not already making it recognize at this and that?
Right, you recognize it as this and that, but that is also an expression of that same reality. we then need not make that distinction. There is that reality and there is that all that which is unreal. That is a bit the sentence that comes from Vedanta. Brahma is only real and all the rest is not real. But you can also more look at everything that you experience as a expression of that one reality, and then you need not make there is the one and the other, but you can still retain that awareness. It's all the play of that same divinity.
Yes, okay.
Okay, of course, from our habit, the tendency is always to get completely sucked into it, completely absorbed, completely forget. But if you have every day where you're having nothing to do and you can put your undivided attention as good as you can, simply in being, then after that, whenever you remember, you can connect with that also when you are active, also when you are perceiving things, also when you are thinking things, also when you are talking, that you are aware there is that silent background and get rooted in that. And then the two suddenly are not two different realities, but more two aspects of that same mystery.
Okay.
Then we need not separate the one from the other.
So let's say that I experienced something that gave me the feeling of some happiness or whatever.
Yes.
And it's come back.
Yes.
It's come back. It's a new one. It's a fresh one. It's different from the one that I already experienced in the other time.
Well, the thing is, the happiness you are experiencing is not really coming from the situation. Simply, we have our whole setup in our mind. We have our likes and our dislikes. We have our ideas, what is pleasing, what is not pleasing. And if the circumstances adjust to our idea, what is pleasing, then what is happening, we relax. And in that relaxation, that sense of happiness is there. But the happiness actually comes out of the source, out of yourself, not from the situation. And so you cannot say, this gives me that much happiness, because you can try it a number of times and once it works and once it doesn't work. Because in one time you are capable, because of that stimuli from outside, to relax. And then you feel happy. But that happiness is not the result of the situation, but the result indirectly had the situation to do with it, but it was fitting to your mental expectation, what is pleasing, what is nice. And then when something is nice, we have the tendency to relax. And in that relaxation, that natural joyousness of existence has, at least to some degree, the possibility to come to the surface. After that, in the mind, we think, I was happy because I've experienced this and this and this, and we try to reproduce it, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't work. Sometimes it seems to give more, sometimes it seems to give less, and often we struggle and experience a lot of unhappiness trying to reproduce what we have experienced there. Not understanding that the happiness didn't come really directly from the situation, but because we like the situation, we let go. And in that letting go, that natural sense of happiness comes more to the surface.
Thank you.
You are the source of your happiness, Udi. It's not coming from anywhere. That doesn't mean that you cannot be in pleasant situations. But life is like this. Sometimes it's pleasant, sometimes it's unpleasant. And if we are not looking for happiness in the external stimuli, but that become more aware that it's coming out of ourselves, then we are more and more free. Then it doesn't depend so much what is happening. Then we learn to be at ease, at peace, no matter what is happening. Still, you will prefer certain things to other things. That's nothing wrong. But there will not be that resistance if it is not according to the pleasing, according to what we like and don't like.
Thank you very much, because it's giving me another option to look differently on what we sometimes call the inward looking,
Yeah.
or the inquiry inward, that it can be even passive in experiencing these events.
Yes. This inward is just the way of talking about,
Yes.
because for that timelessness, for your presence, there is not really an inward and outward. But for the mind, it helps because the feeling is there. We're going out and out and out, so it helps the idea, the feeling to come in. But there is not really an in and out.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome, as usual. Anybody else would like to come? Please come. What we just talked about experiencing happiness. It is a good exercise when we are in a situation where we feel so happy, then not to get completely lost in it. It's not that we are missing something because of that. In contrary, but at that moment, inquire, but where is that happiness really coming from? And completely relax in that happiness. But become aware, oh, it can become stronger and stronger, and there is a fountain of beauty and happiness. We hardly ever really touch. And in a moment of happiness, then if we get completely absorbed in the situation, then invariably after when it has passed, then we wanted that situation back. But if we can also, in a happy moment, inquire and watch and relax in that, that awareness gets stronger and stronger, that that source of happiness is always there. And we can really dive into it. We can open the valve that it comes up and bubbles up. So try, when there are happy moments, not to completely forget yourself in the moment, but just bring the attention back to that very experience of happiness and relax in it. And you will start to experience that it can become even more and more and more strong. And there you also become more aware that it's not really dependent on the circumstances. It's not really dependent on anything, because it's always there if we simply let it come to the surface. No, it's always there. But whether we are experiencing it or not depends whether we let it come to the surface or not. On the other hand, with annoying situations, when that feeling of resistance is there, you get irritated about somebody. And that feeling is there in the body, energetically. There also, if we're not getting completely absorbed in the story, and turn around and round and round all the negative thoughts about the other person or the other persons, but learn to bring the attention back to that feeling, detach the attention from the situation that brought the feeling about, then also a negative feeling, if we relax in it, it's an energy and it can bring us very deep into our own resources, deep in our own self. It helps very much to remember in such a situation where there is a negative emotion there, a negative feeling that is sort of poisoning the whole system, then to just turn away the attention from the content that brought it about and from the person that has annoyed us or from the situation that was annoying, but just let that feeling be, accept that feeling and relax. Relax in it. Relax the body. Relax the legs and feet, the shoulders. Relax the energy, and then the experience may turn totally, and you become aware that even with such a feeling, you can open up that fountain of happiness, and you don't mind the annoying situation anymore. You don't mind even the annoying person, because from that perspective, it's much easier to see why they are acting like this and like that. Understandable most of the time with their background, with their story, with their conditionings. Anyhow, is there anyone who would like to say something? Please go.
Om Namah Shivaya, Werner.
Hello, Om Namah Shivaya.
I am a mass devotee.
Yes,
and
that sounds like.
So some masters say that we don't have to be a good person to realize the self. But Amma give a lot of importance to be kind, to be nice, to be in Dharma. Why?
Why?
Because some masters say we don't need.
Theoretically, we don't need. But why is Amma insisting so much is because if you learn to be nice, if you learn to have empathy, each time you have to step over your own personal petty little limitations. It's a step closer to not feeling that sense of isolation, not being that separate personality. The person, if we just focus on the person, then basically the only thing that interests us is our own petty little well-being and to help with everybody else. It doesn't matter at all. And of course, as long as we are limiting the consciousness in that petty little bubble, it's always a painful business. In order to get aware that actually you are consciousness, and consciousness is expansive, and consciousness is not limited, not separate, but connected with everything, then somehow or other we have to undo those limitations. And to learn to shift a bit the personality is already a step towards that. Because all those tendencies that reinforce again and again and again to just be in that little bubble, they will keep us there. And if we learn to undo those tendencies and rather develop characteristics that help to be expansive than contractive, then that's a great help to that realization that we are not separate identities, that we are one with all, that there is something beautiful and unique in each one, and yet at the same time there is oneness and you are connected to everything. It has nothing to do with morals. The traditions, the religions, they make all that list of good and bad, and then it becomes a moral story. And actually, after that, it's missing its purpose, because then religious people are half of the time busy telling others what is wrong with them, that their morals and their behavior is not good. But originally, it has nothing to do with morals. It's just learning to use that life energy, learning to deal with consciousness in a much more expansive way, which is the more natural way, which is the way that makes you happy. But when people look at religions and see all those rules and think, oh, it's all morals, and they feel that the little bit happiness I can have in this world is also taken away if I follow all these rules. I cannot more be happy. But the basic intent of all that is the opposite, because the more we overcome our petty little limitations, the more that happiness naturally is there. It's not easy to just drop your personality. Boom, gone. So it helps if we start to work on it and start to remove those tendencies that are very strong and always force us to be destructive. Because that is not simply something bad, but it's totally counterproductive. It's contracting consciousness and makes us suffer. It makes others suffer around most of the time, but it makes that person suffer because it's not natural. Consciousness naturally is expansive. And if we learn to develop those qualities that are contrary to this contracting habit, then that opens your heart to become more self-aware. And it's easier then to detach from such a personality than from a personality that goes around and is always mean and destructive and always has to justify and hold that personality together. It's not easy as such contracted consciousness to just let go. It can happen, but it's very rare. So this is just the help to get closer, to become aware that you are not separate, that you are expansive, that you are connected with everything.
But the risk is not to develop luminous ego, that is still ego.
Of course it will happen. Once you get on the spiritual path, that doesn't mean the old habit simply disappears. And then we get rid of certain habits develop new habits, and it's bound to happen that the old personality just is there in new colors, and we're getting proud of it. And now I'm spiritual, and now I'm meditating, and now I'm a good person. But if you are sincere about truth, sooner or later you become aware. Or if you don't become aware by yourself, life will make you aware. And if you still not want to listen, then life will get a bit stronger and make you aware. Or if you are with a guru, the guru will make you aware. That, oh, it's still the same story, a bit more expensive, but it's the same mechanism. If you are sincere about reality, sooner or later you become aware, and you can let that go, and it's bound to sneak in again in a subtle way. That's just how it goes. The remedy is that innocent sincerity for truth, not something out there far away, but just that even if it's not the idea of getting self-realization or God consciousness or whatever, but just that yearning to be natural, to be naturally happy, because naturally you are that divine being. Naturally you are connected with everything. If that yearning is there and becomes purer and purer and more innocent, then even if that luminous ego that you said sneaks in, then you detect it. I'm doing it again. Just it has a bit nicer color than before, and you can let that also go.
Okay. Thank you,
But
Werner.
it will happen. But it will happen, whether you try to get a better person or not. Also, those people who are not trying. I mean, I've seen these ascetics walking on the road who live a very intense and severe life, and instead of opening their heart, they become bitter and hating everybody that appear to be happy and enjoying themselves. And that, of course, is also not the way to go about it. Whatever is keeping that sense of separation, that we have to somehow work on it and let go. And learning to shift a bit bad habits into rather loving and expansive habits, that is certainly a help, a step towards that.
Sometimes when Amma speaks, she give me the feeling that it's never enough. We are not perfect, and we are not good enough.
Right.
And in somehow it appears the goal is unreachable. So that let me think that somehow it can be difficult if we have to be a saint, but we don't have to. Correct?
If you have to, oh, a saint, you
A
said.
saint, yes.
Yeah. No, it's, I mean, Amma talks often like this. She does like this. I used to, when we were a little group, we could talk more like in a family with her. And I used to criticize her, why are you talking like this? And because of this, and arguing with her. And she said, yes, you're all right. I'm doing that just to destroy your ego. But at the same time, with all that criticism that comes from Amma, there comes also a lot of love and energetic support that people are maybe not aware. And on one hand, they feel, oh my God, it's terrible, it's hopeless, but it's just to help us loosen up the attachment to our old habits. At the same time, there is always so much support and help that comes from her that people are not equally aware, like the scolding or and what is happening on the very easy detectable level. But she has her methods, but don't worry, she doesn't try to push people down. She's working and working and working to help to make people more expensive, but her methods are sometimes very wrong. But at the same time, with the external sternness, there is always so a tremendous love is there, even if it's at times not easily visible. It's not easy. Basically, it's totally easy. All we have to do is let go. And yet, because of our mind, because of our clinging, because of holding on to all the stuff that we are carrying along, it seems to be so difficult. Then, and no matter what the guru does, after all, finally, it's always each and everyone's own journey. And that readiness, we have to develop that readiness to let go. And miraculously, although it's hurting, although it's making us miserable, we're holding on to all that stuff as if it was the most precious treasure. Out of fear that if I let go, then what's there? If I let go my old habitual limitations, if I let go, then there is a deep fear there. Then if that goes, then nothing is left. But it's actually all that is holding us back. And so the gurus, they are playing all kinds of crazy games to help people to let go, to always put the attention there and see, hey, come on, let go there. There you're hurting yourself all the time, again and again. But then the readiness to let go has to come from each one. That's the game of this world. No guru is going to do that. No God is going to do that. We can get a lot of inspiration. We can get a lot of guidance. We can get a lot of support. And yet, still, the decision from moment to moment to let go or not to let go must come out of our own heart. And all these crazy games are just to lead us closer to that more and more. Develop that readiness, let go. Just don't hold on to that baggage that hurts, that limits. Nobody has been able to emotionally really squeeze me like Amma in my whole life. At times, there was a period when I thought she also has completely lost it and it's all gone totally wrong. And I was getting crazier and crazier. But then she knew perfectly well how far she can push that I'm not getting irreparably over the edge. And after that, from a new perspective, I could see how perfectly well she knew what she was doing. Not at that time, it has gone way beyond my capacity, way beyond my capacity to endure, way beyond my capacity to handle. Well, but finally, it still worked out, and I can see, okay, I mean, I was not an easy nut to crack. And I was there, I want. My whole approach was rather violent the whole time. That me, I want something. So it was not astonishing that there was quite some violent some violence needed to crack that structure. Adama has helped, has set up the thing bigger than life stories sometimes. And just now, when I look back there, sometimes I cursed her, sometimes I couldn't do that. Sometimes I thought she's completely nuts. I have misplaced my faith in her. It's completely gone wrong. Everything has gone down the drain. And yet, after that, I had to say it was just a masterpiece. She knew how much she can squeeze that in the long run. I'm getting the most out of it. Even when then there was often lots of anger and lots of resentment. Now when I look back, the only sensation, the only emotion that remains is a total gratitude. All right, I think, Sridev, I'll leave you for now. Wish you well. Is there anyone who would like to continue talking?
Hello, Werner.
Hello, Nelly, how are you?
Hello, hello. Yes, I'm well. Well, very good. Thank you.
Good.
I want to share something, and to maybe you comment this. When I meditate, as I maybe talked before, I don't feel something very special, like some people say that they feel happiness or joy or something else. And for me, it's not like this. I feel something is going on, and this is more like routine for me, like I am digging a hole or digging a well, or like this, I feel. But when I connect with nature, I feel myself very happy and joyful. When I walk among the trees or ride my bicycle, I feel a lot of joyness and fullness and a lot of gratitude, and I feel some ecstasy, maybe so much feelings I feel. And I understand that this is some external thing that makes me happy. For example, this nature, and this makes me happy. But when I sit alone, I don't feel like something like this. And I wonder, maybe eventually I come to this feelings when I am alone, and when I feel the same things like happiness and fullness without any other external things. Does it work like this?
Yes, it does work like this. just, just continue digging in your hole.
I'm doing it.
Eventually, you will come to the source of that juice you are looking for. But that doesn't mean you should not go into nature, and it doesn't mean you should not feel happiness in nature. By all means, feel that happiness. It's not simply coming from nature, but you're capable of letting go more when you are in nature, when you are with the plants, when you look at beautiful sights. Then it comes natural and spontaneous that you can let go and feel connected, and then you feel that happiness and ecstasy sometimes. It's not coming from there, it's coming out of you. But because you feel so easily well in such a surrounding, you let go more. But it's good that you continue, in spite of that, also to sit by yourself, even if you don't feel that same happiness so easily. You're not meditating in order to have their like a happy trip. You are meditating to become more aware. And in that awareness, a lot of subconscious stuff can come to the surface. And that's often not such a happy experience. But somehow or other, it's good that we let that stuff come out, that we clean it out. Then it's less and less of an obstacle there. That you can connect with that source of happiness no matter what. And then you are more and more, you will be free, that you can go into nature and you feel totally connected and happy, and you can also go and sit alone and you feel totally connected and happy alone also. It will come. Just don't give it up because of that. Do it as it feels natural to you. You need not push yourself to meditate and meditate and meditate now all the time. Meditate and then go if you can and be in nature. And actually, because of your meditation, even if there you don't feel that happiness, because of that meditation and because of that cleaning out of the psyche, you can more and more experience that joyousness that you are experiencing in nature.
Okay, thank you very much.
Do one and do also the other, both.
Okay, okay, go on. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Anybody? Please come in.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello, Werner. I'm Bruno.
I hear somebody I don't see.
Yes, yes. Yes.
Ah, now I see you. Hello.
Yeah. Hello. Hello. Good morning. Good afternoon. I have a question about it's like getting tricks. If you would have to write down a book on like non-duality for dummies, what would be your best advice or practice for daily life to avoid identifications with the person.
Yeah. Now,
Do
the question is, what would the best advice, not to identify with the person, but what has this directly to do with a special book of Advaita? Or
well, it's just if you would have to write yourself a book on this.
If I have to write a book.
Yes.
Well, actually, I don't think that I'm going to write a book.
Yeah, it was just a joke, just a joke.
Yes, right, right. There is a rule of thumb that you remind yourself that you start your day with the intent that you want to remember. Because as long as we don't remember, nothing can be done. But that I want to remember to connect with the divinity, to connect with the self, to connect with that which is prior to the person. This is the basic rule, and this is applicable for everybody on no matter path we are. But how we are doing that, it can be as different as people are different. It's not that I advocate one method and say, this is the path, this is the way to go about it. This, what I'm talking about, is the essence of all the practices. You can do it more like a jnani, more like the traditional jnana way in India, that you keep on telling yourself, I'm not the person, I'm not this, I'm not that, but I'm that which makes the experience possible. I'm prior to that. But you can also simply ask, who am I? That question is not a question that eventually you get an answer. It's just one way to help to withdraw your attention from the attachment of the situation or of what we are thinking about or the emotion, and bring it back to that sense of being. Who am I? Hi, I am. There's no answer to that question. The answer is to be here now. This is one way to go about it. If somebody doesn't like to start with the intellect to ask questions, you can do a simple thing. And it's doing exactly the same thing. Just learn to consciously breathe in, breathe out, and relax. And you are right here. You're right in the same space that you are getting. If you sincerely ask, who am I? You come into that same space. So each one has to find their own way, what is natural. But the mechanism is always that somehow or other we find something that helps us to let go of the attachment to the perception, to the ideas, to the emotions, to the all that is constituting that me personality, and bring it back to that sense of being that everybody knows. It's not something new. It's not something that we have to create. Anybody has all the time little moments where the attention simply dives into that. But they are in one way so familiar, on the other hand, so fleeting that people don't recognize it. And then whoop, are out again and here and there and and completely don't recognize that actually also their attention is always in between, boom, diving into it. Without that support, nothing would be possible. It can also be in a more devotional way. A person who has a natural tendency for devotion can connect with God with a form or without form, just that sense of feeling connected with God, and more try to make all their actions into a yajna, into a sacrifice, into worship of God. In doing so, one stops being busy with the me personality, and more that divine presence is felt. And that divine presence is the same presence one is touching, who is asking, who am I? Or it's the same presence one is touching, who just simply, consciously breathes in, breathes out, and relaxes. So I couldn't write a book, what is the best way to go about it, because there is no such a thing. Unfortunately, on the spiritual path, most of the people who are on a path, they are always busy trying to prove theirs is the best, the straightest, the highest, the super way, how to get there. And this is all the usual human nonsense that I want to feel superior, so I'm on the superior path. That which comes natural, that is the best help. And it's good to pick up a help, because it's not easy to abstractly understand, okay, I have to let go of that attachment and then let go. It's not so easy. So it's much easier if we have some possibility to redirect the attention. For example, to the devotion to God, or simply to the breath and relax, or simply to the question, who am I? Or that sense of I am, and relax in that. If we have something to hold on to, it's easier to let go of the old attachment. And then truth is right behind it. If you want me to make a statement, what is the best way to go about it, then I have to say that which comes the most natural, that is the best way. And that's different from one to another. People are different, their mental setup is different, so what is functioning for one doesn't function to another, for another. What is effective for one is totally unnatural for another, and it would be forced that one would do that same thing, and it would not get anywhere. So find for yourself what is natural, what attracts you the most, and pick that up, and then don't change it all the time. But that doesn't mean it has to be a fixed way to go about it, and for the rest of your life you are condemned and you stick to that only. But you can have a basic approach that is the most natural, and there you can still play and include new aspects that help you, that attract you. Your natural choice, that is the way to go about it. Are you still there, Bruno?
Yes, sure. Sorry. Yeah, I thank you very, very much for all the answers. That speaks a lot to me. Yeah, very useful.
You're welcome.
Thanks a lot.
Very good. Om Namah Shivaya. Anybody else? Please come in. I'm here in Tiruvannamalai at the foot of Arunachala. This is a jnana place. And there is a lot of devotion here also, but it has become known as a jnana place because Ramana Maharshi's teaching has become known over the world. And he's also known mainly as a jnana teacher, although he's also teaching everything else. And in a jnana place, everybody talks about consciousness, consciousness, consciousness. But even consciousness is not quite that reality. But we can say that pure consciousness is the first expression, the primordial expression, the base out of which all is built up. But it's not only consciousness. Here we talk about consciousness, but it's not only consciousness. It's consciousness, and another aspect is the force of life, energy, the prana, the chi, the pure energy and the pure consciousness. They are two aspects of that same first expression, of the primordial expression, of the ground to which we come back. And it's not only energy and consciousness, but it's also love. These are the three aspects. And we can focus on one or the other. And when I say love, that's a weakness of the language, that different things are being called love. I'm not talking about the emotion love. The emotion love, which is the opposite of hate, but there is that love which is not an emotion, which is equally transcendental as pure consciousness, equally transcendental as pure energy. There is the pure love. It's like the glue that connects everything. And we can focus more on one, or we can focus more on another. The jnani is focusing mainly on consciousness, observing the mind, trying to be quiet, learning to be quiet, then rest in that quietness, in consciousness. And while doing so, energetically, naturally, everything starts to harmonize. Because people, as long as we are full in the mind, full of contradiction, then we have built up a lot of energetic knots in our system that we are not aware of, and that somehow we have to undo and harmonize that energy. If the jnani becomes more and more quiet, more and more capable of relaxing simply in consciousness energetically, he will start to adjust, and the heart will open. The love, the awareness of the connectedness will be there naturally. But we can also focus on another aspect to start with, on the more yogic approach, or Tai Chi, for example. But in the Indian tradition, the yogic approach, you learn more and more to become aware of that force of life. One easy way to connect with that force is be aware of the breath. The breath is not that force of life. The oxygen is not the prana. The air that goes in and out of the body is not the prana. But being aware of that rhythmic action that is happening all the time, gradually one becomes aware of the subtle prana that is making the body function like this. And the more we become aware of the subtle prana, the more all these knots I have been talking about, they are undoing themselves, and the more harmonious energetically the yogi becomes, the more naturally it becomes quiet by itself. The jnani focuses more on consciousness, learns to become quiet, and then energetically it's harmonized. The yogi learns to harmonize the energetic body, learns to connect that individual prana with the cosmic prana, and then in course of the process, automatically it becomes quiet and peaceful. And the heart is opening. And the awareness of being connected is a natural outcome of both. If they are going, who goes really sincerely deeper, whether they approach more on a yogic path, more on a jnana path, or more on a devotional path. The devotee who feels more and more the presence of God, more and more sort of merges with the divinity, more and more this naturally the energies are harmonizing, naturally they are getting quieter. It all comes together. We can approach combining all the three consciously from the beginning, or we can pick out one mainly and go deeper and deeper, and the other two aspects, sure, they also simply will flow into it. If that is not happening, we are remaining very superficial.
Hello.
Hello.
Werner. Hello.
Yes.
Hi. Werner, how important is it to have stillness and quietness in your life?
You mean external stillness and quietness?
Yes. Yes.
Yes. It's very helpful if you have at least every day sometime. But you cannot say it's an absolute necessity. If you can arrange it that your life is more quiet, then by all means arrange it and make the best out of it. But somehow if the circumstances don't let it happen, then don't think you cannot get anywhere. Try in spite of that, then every day to withdraw, at least for some time, as good as you can from all the busyness. Try to have every day some time where you have nothing to do. Just be consciously conscious. And then bring that attitude as good as you can in your activities and in your busy life and in the noisy life or whatever is there.
You know, it's just, you know, I've got many years of quietness and busyness, probably like all of us. But I just find that unless I'm in full retreat somewhere, the waves of activity around me just overtake all the time. Maybe it's still probably I'm not established enough in my own stillness, and therefore make it more fragile, you know, my own stillness more fragile. But it really is a thing, you know, particularly strong emotional things, you know.
Yes, yes. You said even when you go to retreats or in
retreats, it's beautiful, profound.
I see.
Know?
But when you come
and
out,
even in Teru, when I'm in Teru, it's also profound. The energy's there. But the life, you know, the normal, or not the normal life, I shan't say that.
Usual. Let's say the usual
life. Yeah. Still very difficult. You know, I have children, adult children, and I have work and all that. You know, it is that sort of those waves. Doesn't matter how much I plan my day for quietness, and of course, as I get older, I'm a lot more. I make sure I have big spots in my week that I have nothing booked in, so I can be still and follow my path. But still, I'm, you know, those strong waves come.
Yeah.
This is normal. I think. But what have you got anything to suggest or assist with
Right.
in that area, please? Yeah.
Do you have a point in your body where you are naturally and usually centering?
There you go. Hridayakash is my space.
Yeah, you have. So
Yes, yeah.
use that point. So not only when you are practicing, but remind yourself when you feel an influence, strong emotions, if you remember. As long as you don't
I know
remember,
the
nothing
emotions
can.
sometimes are so strong. Yeah.
Right,
Yeah, that's
then
true.
at that moment we forgot. But then when you remember again, instead of trying to protect yourself, instead of trying to somehow do something about it, just center and relax. The more you can do that, the more you become transparent. And then this stuff is not hitting a surface, but it's like passing through like a puff of air. So instead of fighting against the vibes that come, or instead of trying to create all these protections around you, just let them come. Don't fight against them. Don't resist against them. Instead of that, turn your attention simply to that simple thing. Center and relax. The more you can do that, the more you become transparent and it's not affecting you.
Transparent, I like that.
Yes.
I'll hold that word as well as the space. Thank you. Yeah, that it gives me something to work with. Yeah, I'll try.
Right.
Yeah, thank you.
Right. It's magic. You will see. Wish you well. Good luck with
Thank
it.
you. Thank you.
Anybody else who would like to ask something? You're welcome. What we have just been talking now, I've been discussing quite often. It happens often that people doing spiritual practice, but then naturally doing practice becoming more sensitive. But then somehow, sometimes it's not so easy to deal with that. Becoming more sensitive when we start to feel more the emotions, the energies, the negativity that is happening, then one can have the feeling getting more and more overwhelmed. But it need not be like this. Then often I have also talked to people, spiritual people, who say, I cannot more go there, I cannot more go, not more go there, because the vibes, they are just too low. And then it gives just that idea, me, I'm spiritual and I'm sensitive, and creating again a me personality that actually is disharmonious and builds up on a weakness. It need not be like this. Naturally, when we practice, when we become more conscious, there is also an increasing sensitivity that we can feel more what is happening energetically, emotionally. But along with that sensitivity, we can become stronger simultaneously, and then it's not disturbing. It's not that we have to somehow protect ourselves from our sensitivity, but along with that increasing sensitivity, we can become stronger and stronger. And then it doesn't hurt. It's more what I just said before. The more you are strong in yourself, the more you become transparent. And things just pass through like a puff of air and don't leave a trace. So we don't get wiped away or carried away by the influences. Still, there is nothing wrong searching out circumstances where we have supportive energy, supportive vibes, as we have called it, but often it may not be possible. And then it's good to learn not to be, because of sensitivity, vulnerable, but to become stronger. Strength simply means that capacity, that increasing capacity to be here now in the timelessness, to be aware of that aspect of oneself that is not affected by anything, no matter what is happening. And it's there in everybody. In some people it's more buried, in others it's more obvious, but it's there with everybody. That aspect that is not affected, no matter what is happening. And strength means that we learn to connect with that. And the more we can connect with that, the more we can be basically in any place and it doesn't affect. Sometimes we'll have to do a little cleaning, a good breathing or something, withdraw again and let it evaporate. But if that centeredness in that timelessness is there, then even very negative emotions, even very negative energies, so-called low energies, they don't affect us. And it's a great help, what I have just been saying, to be sure of one point in a body where we are centering naturally. It doesn't matter where. It can be the heart, it can be like Ramanov describes the heart on the right side. It can be in the middle, it can be the throat, it can be the third eye on top, it can be the belly. Like Zen Buddhists mainly focus in the belly. That where we are centering most naturally, let's make that into the center and use that with the practice, with the meditation, combine it with the meditation, and then remember to center as much as possible. Also when we are active. And that physical point is not that at that point we are more there, reality is more there, the self is more there. It's simply a help for the mind. It becomes like a gateway. If you physically center again and again and again, it becomes more and more powerful. And it's like all we have to do from there is to relax, and what we are looking for is right behind us. Would anybody like to talk something, ask something? Go in, please. It's good to simply sit quiet without thinking. But if there are thoughts, if there are doubts, sometimes it's good to talk about it. If anybody would like, don't feel shy to come in. Okay, then I'm going to tell a story that comes, that comes to my mind in the context of what I just said. In the beginning, when I came to India, I went to Bombay to study in an ashram, and at that time Nisargadatta was still there. So I went to a few of his satsangs. At the first times when I went, then although he had already his cancer, he was still very active. He was like a lion, jumping on people and their questions and trying to make them understand. Actually, it's all nonsense. What you are thinking, what you are talking, all your concept, cutting everything to pieces. But then the last time I saw him, he was then not more physically capable of his old performance. Previous, he was sitting on a little pita on the ground and being there, waiting for people, and pounce on them. But then the last time he was sitting on an easy chair, not more talking much. Often the translator would reply to a question and said, Maharaj has already often replied that question. Then in that little room, often for longer periods, it was just quiet, very powerful, potent quietness. And there suddenly he would say, yeah, it's a very useful state, simply to sit here without thinking. And it was all quiet again. Intensely quiet. And after a while, again, he said, yes, yes. It's a very useful state, simply to sit here without thinking. Then he was quiet again. But in spite of that, in this online satsang, if somebody would like to talk about something, you're welcome to come in. That's wonderful. Everybody is at ease, at peace, and has no questions. How many are we? 40 people. Nobody has any doubts or problems. Wonderful.
Werner, can I ask one more question, please?
Yes, you can.
I'd like to. The aspect of the physical body, you know, the Annamaya kosha and the, you know, Vijnanamaya kosha and the, you know, the effects. What is your experience, or what can you say about how healthy a body must be, or how stable must the Annamaya kosha be to develop higher sensitivities?
It is helpful if the body is reasonably healthy. But it's not that we have to give the absolute priority there. Then if we are, I mean, it's good to practice yoga or similar exercises to help to make the body healthy, to make the body more sensitive. But one can then get obsessed on that level. And then that is counterproductive, that it should be perfect, appear perfect and be in perfect health, and then the whole attention can be locked there, and then this is not more serving the purpose of becoming more self-aware, but then one is just fixed on that physical level.
Yeah. I understand that, but I guess I mean in terms of particularly with an aging body, things develop in an aging body where the body is less stable.
Yes. Now this is going to happen, and we can accept this is going to happen, and then keep it as good as you can, reasonably healthy without getting obsessed about the body, and focus more about being at ease, at peace. On the other hand, normally I would say to people, also to young people, come on, take care of your body, keep your body healthy, otherwise it's disturbing. On the other hand, there is that example of Ramana. He just didn't give a damn about his body. But of course, there are not so many Ramanas walking around. But he was so totally absorbed that it didn't matter. When he came as a young boy, at first he was sitting in the temple, and then other young boys, they found it funny to throw stones at that guy who was sitting there. So he was disappearing in the Patala Lingam, a little underground cave, little temple actually, but it was unused at that time and very dirty and full of ants, and he was just sitting there, and the ants were eating up his body, and he didn't give a damn about it. But I mean, who can be so absorbed like this, like Ramana? For most of the people, I would recommend give the body the attention it deserves to be a good instrument, but don't get obsessed with the body. And then when we are getting older, then all kinds of things may pop up. Don't get upset too much about it, but if we can repair it, fine. If we can make it good again, fine. But if something just doesn't function as it used to function, don't make it in a reason that it is disturbing you all the time, but accept the new situation and adjust to it. And in that way, don't get attached to it, but you can learn that it doesn't disturb you in spite of that. Get rooted in your own consciousness. Be at ease, at peace in your consciousness as good as you can. And the more you do that, the less the body is disturbing. And if then sometimes something happens to the body that is not pleasant, that is painful, it disturbs less. And as long as young or old, as long as the body is there, sometimes it hurts.
So really, it is the thing that the true self is timeless, yeah, ageless and timeless.
Ageless,
not,
timeless.
Not connected, yeah.
You were never born, you will never die. Even now, you are not really incarnated. It's just that being that appears now as this lady has projected a part of itself, an aspect of itself on this level. But actually,
into mud.
In the mud, plunging around in the mud for some time. But you as that being, even now, are never really incarnated. That incarnation is there, it's appearing, it grows, and it's going away. But you, what you are timeless, spaceless, birthless, deathless. Focus on that, and then you can still take care of the body, that it's not disturbing, that it's a good instrument for an expression of that self, but don't get obsessed with the physical level and try to make it always perfect, perfect, perfect.
Thank you.
Right, if somebody wants to come in now. Otherwise, I'm going to close today's session. I think we leave it with that. So I'm going to stop the recording. And after that, I invite, as usual, everybody who likes to open their camera and microphone that we can see each other.